Yeah. 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 Let the Bible speak. Don't speak for the Bible. Open the book and let's have a revival. It's about the truth. It's about survival. Return to the basics. Get back in the Bible.
Hello, brothers and sisters. I'm getting ready to sneak into a TikTok live to the person that I first debated, my first debate. And I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm going to attempt to prove that the Father alone is God. Let me make a slight adjustment here so that you can see that I'm talking to you. There we go. Because there's no telling how long it'll take for me to come to the panel. But when I actually get on the panel, I actually want to move this aside so I can see that completely. There we go. Because I'm recording this in different ways to try to make a new upload if this doesn't work out well. So as you can see on the screen, he has some challenges. Prove Yahweh is only the Father, and the Tanakh show me without presuppositions. The Old Testament shows Messiah shares Yahweh's identity. Jesus is the fulfillment of Messiah can receive that identity. The messenger of Yahweh is distinguished from Yahweh, yet identified as Yahweh. These are the challenges that I'm going to step up and try to address. So I'm going to put these headphones on. I'm going to mute up, meaning I'm going to change my microphone over so you can hear these people. At this point in time, yes, you can't hear them the way I have it set up. So I'm going to switch my microphone so you can hear them. I'm just going to be sitting here quiet until they bring me up. May God be with me. Here we go. Okay, so I'm swapping over my microphone.
Listen, bro, I'm not defending that doctrine by itself. I gotta like.
Oh, Aki, did you see the new video I posted?
No, I'm gonna go watch it. Hold on.
You gotta watch that. Oh my gosh, that was so funny.
Which one?
The one I just posted. What was it, like last night?
Give me a second, because I got to do it through my computer.
It was just horrible. What's up, Jesse?
Not much. I finally made it in here to try to attempt to address your challenges.
Okay, go for it if you want.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. What I do want to do, though, Copa, is I want to take this slow, if it's okay with you.
That's fine. It's your argument. I'm gonna go with you step by step.
I want to talk to you throughout and have you, because I don't want to filibuster, but I just don't want to be crazy. Cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it step by step.
All right. So the first thing I want to do is try to identify Messiah in the Bible, so that I can get some kind of grounds for that to put a distinction. And what I want to do is go to Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 15 through 18. And your stipulation, by the way, is that I cannot use New Testament, right? I have to do it from Tanakh?
Yeah.
That's cool. So what I'm going to do here, without asking if you agree based on New Testament, is I'm going to try to show in the Old Testament that Deuteronomy chapter 18, 15 through 19 applies to Messiah. That's why I come here. So,
18?
Yeah, 15 through 19.
15 through 19. Got it.
Yeah.
Ooh, how do I spell that wrong? Okay, so we got...
Sounds like you're looking it up, so I was waiting on you.
Yeah, I have it up here. Yahweh, your God, will raise up a prophet like me among you from your brothers, that you should listen to him. This is according to all that you asked for Yahweh, your God, in Horeb on the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear again the voice of Yahweh, my God. let me not see this great fire anymore, or I will die. Then Yahweh said to me, they have spoken well. I will raise up a prophet among their brothers like you, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I commanded him. And it will be that whoever will not listen to my words, which he shall speak in my name, I myself will require it of him.
Yeah. So what I want to grab from here is in verse 18, he says he's going to put his words in his mouth, and that's going to be significant for identifying Messiah in Isaiah 11, not 11, just in the book of Isaiah. There's several messianic passages in Isaiah. I'm sure you can agree with me. So,
Sure. I mean, I
right,
would usually say this in itself wouldn't be like a Messiah in a sense, but you can say that this is just usually referred to as prophet. But since like it seems like the Messiah can have some overlap into that.
okay, I appreciate that pushback, and with that, we can turn to Deuteronomy chapter 34, verses 9 through, it looks like 12, because some Jews actually think that that's Joshua. And there's some context there that's pretty important to let you know that this is a particular prophet. And after Joshua was anointed, or the torch passed to him to be a leader, it says there was not a prophet like Moses that knew God face to face, and all the signs and wonders which the Lord sent him to do. So this is going to be a very significant prophet. You understand?
Obviously, you're talking about Deuteronomy 34, right? This is not has not risen up prophet since in Israel like Moses, whom Yahweh knew face to face, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to share that in regards to, like, this tells us more detail. So in Deuteronomy 18, it says that God would put his words in that prophet's mouth. That prophet would speak in God's name. But it tells you more like Moses that God knows this prophet face to face, like Moses. And there's signs and wonders that this prophet would do. So this is a very significant prophet, and although other words, like for example, other prophets like Jeremiah, God put his words in his mouth. Mm-hmm. You know. All right, so if it's what I want to do now is I actually want to go to Isaiah chapter 11. How's that?
Where it states that the Messiah has the spirits of God. He does these other actions.
Yeah, basically, he's going to come out of the root of Jesse,
right,
to establish a particular lineage, mm-hmm. and that he receives the spirits of God. But more particularly, at the end of the chapter, it says, trying to find it. Maybe it's not the end of the chapter. Let me, hold on. Oh, well, there's some context here, and maybe the Exodus is in the Hebrew. It's not translated in my Bible, but it says that he would, the second time, gather them from, there shall be a highway for the remnant of his people, which shall be left of Assyria, as it was to Israel in the day he came up out of Egypt. All right, so the word Exodus isn't there, but we see a similar speech pattern regarding, you know, a path of protection through the seas, and this figure who is the root of Jesse that will be a signal or a sign that people would trust in. Do you understand?
If you're trying to like say like is like the branch or the root of Jesse going to be something similar like Moses?
Yes, because
sure, I
mean this person's supposed to judge the earth, and it's going to talk about in his day that they're going to be saved there's going to be a highway like in the day of Exodus. So it's pulling Exodus scenery. So this is only a small step to try to make the link to a prophet like Moses.
Sure.
Okay. So now let's flow over to Isaiah 42, where in the first verse it says that God puts his spirit on this servant. And in this chapter, there's actually two servants. There's one that opens the eyes, which is the beginning of the chapter, and then there's the blind servant, which is in the latter part of the chapter. Mm-hmm. So they are distinguished. Mm-hmm. But something significant is in verse 4, as you might remember our debate, they wait on his Torah.
Right.
Yeah, or if I'm not mistaken, they actually hope for his Torah. And in verse 6, it says that he gives them for a covenant to the people. That's going to be significant. No, and a light to the nations. This is all significant. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to suggest that this servant is the same one that receives the Spirit of God in Isaiah 11. And I'm probably not going to go to Isaiah 49 to keep this as condensed as possible, but there's more passages in Isaiah 49.
Yeah, and I would agree with you that obviously Isaiah 49 talks about the servant. He's called Israel as well. It also says in, verse 8, I believe, or was it verse 6, one of the two, where it's like, is it too light for you to be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, to bring forth the preserved ones of Israel? I made you as a salvation for the people. And then I think it's like verse 9, it says, I made you a covenant to the people. It uses the same thing.
Yeah, verse 6 says he's the light. Verse 8 says that he's the covenant. But we see that he's supposed to gather Israel, just like it's talking about in Isaiah chapter 11 at the end. Mm-hmm. So I want to flow over to Isaiah 51, because this is where a lot of things are going to start coming together. And let's see. In verse 4 and 5, there's some significant things going on. So it says, hearken to me, my people, and give ear to me, my nation, for a Torah will proceed from me, and I will make my judgment rest for a light of the people. Mm-hmm. So we see a relationship. What I didn't touch on was the servant in Isaiah 42 is supposed to set the mishpat in the earth, the judgment in the earth. But he's going to be the light. God says he's going to make his mishpat, his judgment, a light to the people. Mm-hmm. So this would imply that the Messiah, when he comes, is going to bring a judgment, and he is going to be the bearer of the light by being the bearer of that judgment. Mm-hmm. That's the relationship with him. Oh, crap. I totally messed up something. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. There we go. Okay. So then it says, my righteousness is near, my salvation has gone forth. And this is important because Isaiah 49:6 says that you shall be my salvation to the ends of the earth. So this is talking about God sending his salvation to servant, though at that point in time, it's like the proclamation's been issued, but obviously the Messiah has not yet been sent in Isaiah's day. And it says, my arm will judge the people. And, there's judgment in Isaiah 11:4. And the arm represents Messiah in Isaiah 40, verse 10, Isaiah 53, verse 1, Isaiah 52, verse 10. I'm hoping that you won't ask me to define every single aspect. I'm just trying to condense it. Mm-hmm. And the isles will wait on God, and on his arm they will trust. Mm-hmm. If we go down to verse 9 in Isaiah 51, it says, awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord. Awake as in ancient days, in the generations of old. Are you not it that cut Rahab and wanted the dragon? Are you not it that dried up the seas, the waters of the great deep, that has made the depths of the sea a way for the ransom to pass over. So we can see that it's evoking Exodus language again. Now, you do have a reasonable pushback here, because if I'm connecting Isaiah, Messiah with the arm, and that arm did that in the day of the Exodus, does that mean that Messiah is God, or does that mean Messiah was an angel or something like that? I want to bring clarity that the arm represents God's power, and those empowered by God could be the arm. I can make a case in Isaiah 63, verse 12, I believe it is, that Moses was the arm of God's glory in that day. Hopefully you won't make me prove that, but if you want to, I will.
Is
You want to respond to that? Yeah.
I'm thinking that you're talking about, I think like verse 11, it says, when his people remember the ancient days of Moses, where he brought up them out of the sea with the shepherd of his flock, where he who put his Holy Spirit in the midst of them, who caused his glorious arm to go at the right hand of Moses. If that's what you're referring to? Or maybe
Yeah. Now, I can explain to you. Oh, go ahead.
I mean, you can say that Moses could be his arm. The only problem is this part right here. It says, who caused his glorious arm to go at the right hand of Moses? So it's like, it seems like they're like the arm of the arm of God is like literally right next to Moses. It's like, it's literally identifying this, like, there's a distinction between Moses and God's glorious arm. But I mean,
Yeah, so I can appeal to the Greek and try to show you that Moses and arm of his glory is appositional, which would make Moses the arm. But I'll shortcut it. If you check the YLT version, it says leading by the right hand of Moses, the arm of his glory. The YLT translates it that way because it's appositional in the Hebrew.
let me see. Is it the NLT?
YLT, Young's
YLT.
literal translation. Yeah.
YLT.
And if you pay attention to some of the things that I'm saying here, this would be great stuff to witness to a Jew. So hopefully you can take some of this stuff in.
Leading by the right hand of Moses, the arm of his glory, cleaver waters. Oh, okay. So you're saying verse 12, leading by the right hand of Moses, the arm of his glory, cleaving waters from before them, to make himself a name during age during, leading them through the depths as a horse in a plain, they stumbled not. Leading not as a beast into the valley goeth down, the spirit of Jehovah causes him to rest, and hast thou led thy people to make thyself a glorious name. Is that what you're referring to right here? Or
Particularly verse 12, yeah, where it identifies Moses as the arm of God's glory appositionally. And this would be significant. You want to say something before I push?
Go ahead and continue.
So this would be significant in Isaiah 51, verse 9, where it says, awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord. It would be evoking one like Moses, the Exodus imagery, how God redeemed them, as it says in Exodus 6:6, with an extended arm. So they would be looking for a savior like Moses. You understand?
I mean, I can see what you're trying to get, but my thing is like, it says the way I'm looking at it and the way that it's being written now, it still seems like it's a distinction, because it says by the right hand of Moses, the arm of his glory. So the arm is still distinct from Moses, from what I'm seeing, especially when we were looking in the Hebrew, right? It's not grammatically appositional to Moses, because it would say Moses, his glorious arm, but it doesn't necessarily like render it that way.
I mean, his glorious arm and the arm of his glory is the same thing. You could say the father of him and his father. It's just the way we talk in English is different than how it's written in Greek and Hebrew.
Yeah,
But the arm of his glory is still oppositionally fixed to Moses, even in the Hebrew.
yeah, but it would say like this: leading them, or Moses leading them, or it technically would say Moses leading them. His or Moses, the glorious arm, would be leading him. Hold on, give me 1 second, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that. It's my dog.
I understand.
Right, go ahead.
All right, so I don't really want to push forward until we work this out. So what grammatical function do you think the arm of his glory would be representing in Isaiah 63:12?
What? Say it again.
I'm asking how do you think the phrase "the arm of his glory" is functioning in the grammatically in Isaiah 63:12 if it's not in apposition to Moses?
Yeah, because it would be like what's the word I'm looking for? Because they're grammatically making a distinction between the two. It's portrayed as an accompanying being by Moses' right arm because it states that within the text.
I'm asking for a grammatical term that would express what you're trying to say. When I say apposition, I'm talking about two substantives that are side by side that share the same referent. What you're given is an interpretation, but I'm asking for a grammatical term to express
It would be
what you're
more.
saying.
It would be more of like a prepositional phrase, or more like something like that.
You
Or a
would then
participle
need
clause. It would be a bit more like a participle clause rather than an appositional.
a participle clause, which would be an action. I'm going with participle. I'm trying to think about
Yeah, so the
basically.
participle would be causing to go, or it would be leading, which would be the hiphil, right? Prepositional, right, which is located phrase at to or to the right hand of Moses, tells you where the arm is being led or made go to. And the constructive chain, right, literally means like the arm of the glory, right, or idiomatically his glorious arm.
Yeah. So all right. So that verb that led says that led it here or leading. It's a hiphil stem, which means to cause. It's participle. So the subject is causing to lead. The subject would be in the previous verse, he who brought them up out. So that would be God. And the lamed prefix to the right hand. So that could be understood as by. So far we're in agreement, I think, regarding how it's translated to by the right hand, and the right hand would be construct to Moses. So by the right hand of Moses, are we in agreement so far?
It would be, if you're saying participle, which would be causing to go or leading, which is a prepositional, right? Limin Moshe, right, will be principal locative phrase, right? At or to the right hand of Moses, which tells you where the arm is being led. The subject, right, would be, or the construct chain, the construct, there is the word, construct chain, right? The glorious, the arm of his glory, or the glorious arm, or his glorious arm, would be referring to that.
Okay, so
it would be his glorious arm goes and leads at the right hand of Moses.
Most frequently, the subject of the verb would come after the verb, sometimes before the verb, but most frequently after the verb. But what you have here is a prepositional construct, right hand of Moses, that follows the verb. And then you have another substantive, the arm of his glory, just floating there. So traditionally speaking, regarding Hebrew, that arm of his glory would not be the subject.
Why wouldn't
And
it be the subject?
furthermore, arm is feminine and the subject of that verb is masculine.
Well, that doesn't make any sense because you're saying this the subject, right, would be Moses, but that's not the thing. It says at the right
No.
hand of Moses. That's not the subject.
No,
At the right hand of
I'm
Moses.
not
is the subject.
proposing that. I'm not proposing Moses is the subject. I'm saying the person in the previous verse is the subject. And I'm showing you grammatically that the
Wait, why would-
arm would not
how'd you-
be.
Yeah, okay, how'd you get that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, how'd you get the person in the previous verse be the subject? The subject would be the arm in this verse.
All right. So it says, remember the days of old, Moses, his people. Where is he who bringing them up from the sea? I'm suggesting that he would be the continual subject because it says the spirit, the shepherd of his flock. Where is he putting his Holy Spirit in him? Leading would be continuation of the same subject, the he, which would refer back to God. In verse 16, it'll identify him as their father. I'm suggesting that, but one thing I could do just to save us time is I will agree with you, Moses is not the subject of the verb leading. I will also propose that arm is feminine, therefore it is not the subject of this also. So contextually, I'm going to have to derive the subject in the previous verse.
Yeah, so we would say that God would be the subject, right? Or understood as the subject or the agent, right? He's causing, right?
I'll agree.
Okay. And then we would say that his glorious arm, right, is the object theme or the causative verb that he causes to go.
Say that one more time.
His glorious arm, the object theme of the causative verb, meaning what he causes to go. So his or his refers to God, right? So it's God's arm, right? Or his glorious arm, God's glorious arm, right? Is the object and theme. God is causing his glorious arm to go there, right?
That wouldn't be what would be expressed here because it said leading by the right hand of Moses. And then arm of his glory is appositionally fixed to Moses.
I don't see
That
how
was
it's still,
substantive.
I don't see how it's appositional because it doesn't say Moses, the glorious arm. That would be appositional because it's Yahweh, right, that causes, right, and leads his glorious arm, right, at the right hand of Moses, because the right hand of Moses is the locative phrase. It's at the right hand of Moses. That's where it's located. What's being located, right, is where this thing is going, whatever Yahweh's sending, right, which is his glorious arm.
Yeah, that doesn't follow. There's no direct object marker before arm, nor is there a lamed next to arm to indicate that it would be a direct object of this verb. Yet there is a direct object marker or a lamed that functions as direct or indirect marker for the hand, which is construct with Moses. And then arm following Moses is appositional.
The direct
In the Hebrew.
object is the glorious arm.
There's no direct object marker, nor is there a lamed prefix to it for you to make that
The
assertion.
direct object. If you're talking about et, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Why would there have to be? Biblical Hebrew
For
does
you to
not
make
require an et in every definite direct object.
If it was here, you can assert that. But
I mean,
since
you
it's not
can,
here,
but I'm asking you what's the criteria that biblical Hebrew requires an et every single time for a direct object?
what I have right here is two nouns side by side, two substantives, the hand of Moses and the arm of his glory, referring back to God. And this apposition is renaming Moses as the arm of God's glory. There's nothing grammatically that would indicate that this arm is the object of that verb.
It literally, it tells you it is the object of the verb because it's his glorious arm that's being sent, because you already identified the subject, right, in the previous verse, right? And he's the one that's causing, right, his glorious arm, which would be the object, right, to go at the right hand of Moses, which would be the locative phrase. So it's Yahweh causes and leads, right, his glorious arm, then it's at the right hand of Moses.
All right, so what I want to do right now, Copa, is because you and I are going in circles, and reading Hebrew, it's open interpretation. I'm saying you wouldn't be able to assert your position. You're pushing back on mine and you're denying it, so we're not going anywhere here. So I want to push forward. This was a side note. This wasn't necessary for me to prove my claim. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. So returning back to Isaiah chapter 51, verses 9 through 10, we see imagery of the Exodus. It even talks about redeemed returning. And we see that in verse 11. It says, therefore the redeemed of the Lord will return and come with singing to Zion, and everlasting joy will be on their head, and they shall obtain gladness and joy, and sorrow and mourning shall flee away. So this is talking about a return, which we could see something similar going on in Isaiah chapter 11 at the end, that during the day of that root of Jesse, there would be a return a second time from the lament. And he even says, I am he that comforts you. That's an introduction to Isaiah chapter 40, verse 11, where he's actually telling Israel to comfort one another. That's another story. So I'm kind of trying to fast forward. I'm getting to verse 16, where it says, I have put my words in your mouth and covered you in the shadow of my hand, that I may plant the heavens and lay the foundations of the earth and say to Zion, you are my people. So this person that God puts his words in his mouth, he covers him in the shadow of his hand, which is the same language in Isaiah 49:2, where that servant says, God made his tongue like a sharp sword and covered him in the shadow of his hands. So it's still pointing back to that servant. Another thing, the purpose of this is that I may plant the heavens, lay the foundation of the earth, and say to Zion, you are my people. And we know that takes place when Israel is gathered again and they come into covenant again with God, because that's actually Jeremiah 31:34. Can you meet me at least halfway on some of the stuff I'm saying here?
Okay, so you're saying that God is using obviously his servant, and what chapter was that in? You said it's 51.
I'm
right?
sorry. Say that again. I'm in Isaiah 51, verse 16.
Yeah. So you're saying that, oh wait. I have put my words in your mouth, and I have covered you with with the shadow of my hand to establish the heavens and found the earth. And you say to Zion, you are my people, right? And he said that's also with the other one in Isaiah 11.
I didn't understand your question.
Yeah, you're saying Isaiah 16, right? That I have put my words in your mouth and covered you with the shadow of my hand. That's also stated where else?
Oh, Isaiah 49:2. It
Oh, Isaiah
says that
49:2.
the Yeah, he made his tongue like a sharp sword, hence Revelation 19. But scratch that. That's not supposed to be here. So, but
Okay,
the second
okay, I'll scratch
clause,
that part.
hit him in the shadow of his hands.
Yeah, he has hit my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand, he has concealed me. Okay. And he said,
Yeah, so this phrase right here would be linking the one that God puts his words in his mouth as to that servant. Would you agree with that?
Wait, repeat the question again.
So what I'm saying, I have covered you in the shadow of my hand, and seeing the servant whose tongue was made like a sharp sword would be tying the one being spoken to in Isaiah 51:16 to the one speaking in Isaiah 49:2.
So the same person that's speaking in.
Simply put, I'm saying that the person speaking in Isaiah 49:2 is being spoken to in Isaiah 51:16.
Sure.
Okay. And at this point, what I have is inferences. This is prophecy. There is nothing explicit. I'm willing to concede to that. But my inferences are that God is speaking to the servant in the same context that he's raising Exodus imagery, and the servant in Isaiah 11 is also Exodus imagery, the second time, like when he brought him out of Egypt. So I'm trying to infer that these things are linking this servant to be the prophet like Moses. That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
And another thing that I want to do, I'm looking at this context real quick, but I want to slide over to Isaiah chapter 59, verse 21. Yeah, 21. It's the last verse of the chapter. And here you might push back on me a little bit. But honestly, Copa, if you could meet me halfway, these would be good passages for you to witness to a Jew, honestly. Because I've done a lot of study on who Messiah is in the Old Testament, showing his second coming and everything. So it says, as for me, this is my covenant with them, says the Lord. My spirit, which is on you, I'm suggesting Isaiah 42:1, Isaiah 61:1, Isaiah 11:2, and my words which I put in your mouth, Isaiah 51:16, Isaiah 49 verse 2, shall not depart out of your mouth, nor out of the mouth of your seed, nor out of the mouth of your seed, says the Lord, from henceforth and forever. And the part that you may push back on me on is the word seed. Am I wrong?
If we're referring to seed as in biological children, or it can be.
Yeah, some Jews would try to say that this proves it must be Israel because the Jesus in the New Testament
They
didn't have
any
children.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say
Yeah.
it's going to be referring to biological children. It doesn't have to be.
But it can, I would agree. And the way I understand this is seed doesn't always refer to offspring, but rather lineage, kind, nationality, ethnicity. So, I mean, yeah, I won't have to verify that since you agree with me. So I'm suggesting that this servant is supposed to be an initiator. God puts his words in his mouth. He puts his words in his brother's mouth. But this would show a distinction between the whole house of Israel and a particular Israelite, who I believe is the servant, the master, Messiah. And seeing the same language here, and evoking the continual Exodus imagery, I believe this is the prophet like Moses that didn't yet rise, in the same sense that Moses knew him. I believe this is a very special prophet in Deuteronomy 18. I don't believe it applies to all prophets. How do you feel about that?
I would say that they didn't necessarily fulfill what is to be a prophet like Moses. I mean, there's just, I guess you would say, the regular requirement of being a prophet like Moses, speaking on behalf of, you know, the Lord and all that stuff, of Yahweh and all that. But obviously we see in Deuteronomy 34 where it doesn't say that there has been a prophet that's like Moses, right? God knew face to face. So there is a requirement. I don't think every prophet fits that category. What Moses did. This is a particular type of prophet that only, I guess, the Messiah, right, could obviously achieve, like, because we see that obviously the Spirit was on Moses at one point, and then obviously Moses puts his hands on the judges. So when he was judging all the rest of the tribes, because he was getting tired of, you know, dealing with the people, so he did have the Spirit of Moses. He did speak to Yahweh directly. So there is, in a sense, where the rest of the prophets don't fit the category of the one like Moses. I think you make a good case where the servant can be identified as a prophet like Moses.
I agree too, and I think other context that's important is Deuteronomy chapter 34, verses 10 through 12, because it tells you additional information that's tied to that prophet. Like there were people, Jeremiah, God put his words in his mouth, but Jeremiah didn't do signs and wonders like in Egypt.
He didn't. Yeah, I don't remember him ever actually doing anything like that.
Yeah. So this is a very, very unique role that there are similar prophets. They didn't fulfill this.
Yeah.
Like for example,
even with
Elijah. Go ahead.
I would even say, not to interrupt you, but I would say even with Joshua, right? Everyone would, I guess you would say the Jews would say, oh, Joshua, it's actually Joshua that was the fulfillment of that. But the problem is, one, Joshua is never called a prophet, even though he does, I guess you would say, is in a category of doing prophet type work in a sense. He could have some type of overlap. He's just never called by Yahweh, you are my prophet, or whatever the case may be, right? But he does do something similar, like lead the people out, right, into the promised land and things like that. But he's never called to be the prophet like Moses or did anything, even though he did some similar things, like, you know, split the Jordan and all that stuff and whole 9 yards. But yeah, he didn't do the extensive of what Moses did, especially bringing the law and all that stuff. So there was a lot of other things.
Yeah, you're raising really good points in regards to similitude, but the purpose of the great thing about Deuteronomy 34, we see that Joshua was already anointed in position before they made the statement, no prophet since. So Joshua can't be in that category. This was said after that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think, what was it? I was talking to one of them, one guy. I don't know if you know him. His name is the Persian Jew. And he was saying that, oh, Joshua, because God said that, hey, I will raise you up. And because my prophet a prophet Moses has passed and died. And so I'm like, but that doesn't mean that he's the prophet like Moses just because he exalts him to be a leader. That doesn't follow based upon that. But I mean, if you want to talk to him, you can. I mean, you're not going to get much of an answer out of him, but I can't. But
Okay, so are you in agreement with me that Deuteronomy 18 would be the servant in Isaiah?
Yeah, you can make an inference out of it. I wouldn't say like there's like an explicit thing, but the way that you articulated it and the way that you give it examples, you made a good inference of how it can be. The prophet like Moses will be the Messiah. So yeah, you made a good case for it.
All right, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So you did really good on that one. So I would agree with you.
Yeah. There's a lot more going on, Copa, because I've grown a lot since you and I had that our last discussion, and I really wanted to know who Messiah is and defend the fact that he is Messiah. So I did a lot of research, and yeah, there's a lot I could say, but I'm going to try to get back to the subject. So, would you agree with me real quick before we push forward? Well, I won't bring that up yet because there's two different directions I may take here. One of them would show distinction between God and the angel. Well, how do you understand the word numerical identity? Would you define it so I can understand if we're on the same page?
I would just say numerical identity would be, it's going to be one and the same. So I would say like Superman and Clark Kent. That's numerical identity. There's no distinction in it.
A equals B, B equals A.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So like, let's see, Messiah shares Yahweh's identity. That's your second challenge. Would you understand that as numerical or like predicated representational identity?
I would say that he's numerically identical to Yahweh, but not numerically identical to the one that sent him. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm not asking your position. I'm asking, like, when you said, from my position, I would never say Messiah is numerically identical. So, like, I just want to clarify that that's not what you're looking for in your second challenge. You're asking me to show he shares the identity, but isn't numerically identical to him. Is that it?
Oh, is the identity numerically identical to, obviously, Yahweh?
Yeah.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, because I believe that representationally and an agency in the Bible, you can bear God's identity, but not be numerically identical to God. And I could show passages to prove that if you needed, but I would hope that you would meet me halfway there.
Well, we can talk about it if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. All right, so we got this guy tied to that servant. So let's so we can understand more fully about Messiah's identity. Are you aware that Micah and Isaiah were contemporary? They were both prophesying at different parts of Israel in the day that they were prophesying, like in the same time?
Yeah.
Not precise time, like maybe one generation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you know the relationship between, what is it? I think it's Micah chapter 3 and Isaiah chapter 2 is almost verbatim in their openings before they take their own unique prophecy, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So Isaiah chapter, actually, the one that comes out of Bethlehem.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we don't have to go through that debate on verse 2.
We can skip that if you want to. It is what it is.
Yeah, I just want to come here. I want to show you some identity. So, yeah, that would be Messiah. You agree with me, correct? It comes out of Bethlehem, because when it's talking about this is other context you can use with the Jew. As you go into verse 5, it says, "This man shall be the peace when the Assyrians shall come into our land, and when he tread in our palaces. Then shall we raise against him 7 shepherds, 8 principal men, and they shall waste the land of Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod." The land of Nimrod, Babylon, the land of Assyria, that's like northern Iraq. If you were to say this ruler is maybe Hezekiah during the day of the Assyrian, the Bible doesn't record Hezekiah leaving Jerusalem and going into the land and besieging and conquering Assyria, or even going to Babylon. So that's some context you can use with a Jew also if they push back on you. Mm-hmm. But so I do believe this is Messiah. I think Assyria may be a archetype or a symbolic figure of a later kingdom that would be like the Assyrians, or who knows, maybe there will be another rise of Assyria. But what I really want to get to here is Micah 5:3. Therefore, he will give them up. And I would say contextually, this he refers back to the ruler that comes out of Bethlehem. And this actually, if you link this with Isaiah 66, where before the travail comes, she's delivered of a man child. After the travail comes, she brings forth her children. So this indicates that two comings. Therefore, he gives them up. He comes out of Bethlehem, but he gives them up until she that travails has brought forth. So you see a relationship between Micah 5:3 and Isaiah chapter 66. I forget the exact verse, that this Messiah figure would gather Israel later, which is still linking us back to Isaiah 49:6, gathering of Israel, the remnant, Isaiah 11, the second time, so on, so on. It says, then the remnant of his brethren will return to the children of Israel. So this is after Messiah comes. He doesn't gather them till they repent. Verse 4, when he gathers Israel, this has not yet been fulfilled. Obviously, I think you would agree with me that the children of Israel has not yet fully returned, and Messiah gathers them. It says, he shall stand and feed in the strength of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. So in the strength, stand and feed in the strength, I take as being empowered by God. How do you feel about that?
I don't have an issue with that.
In the majesty of the name of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, his God. And they shall abide, for now he shall be great to the ends of the earth. We definitely know that he's not great to the ends of the earth yet in regards to ruling.
Right. He hasn't established his kingdom just yet.
Yeah. But here it says he stands in the strength of God and in the majesty of the name of his God. I understand this phrase as bearing God's identity representationally, that he's glorified, kind of like Hebrews 1:3. Hebrews 1:3, sitting at the right hand of the majesty. Though we're not important that, but that's how I see it. He bears God's name right here. How do you feel about that?
So he will stand in shepherd of his flock and the strength of Yahweh and the majesty of the name of his God. So, sure. I mean, there is some type of representation in this. Yeah.
Yeah. So this right here is basically to bear one's name does not make you numerically identical. So like, I'm only using this verse to show that he will be in the majesty of the name of his God. So he's bearing God's identity. I'm not arguing against numerical identity. I'm just showing that the Messiah can bear God's identity in this respect. How's that?
I would say that there's some type of representative there, or representation that you can say that the Messiah bears God's name in a representative form. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. And a little side note, he has a God, but I'm not going to push that. All right. So
you and me both believe that Jesus has a God. I don't know why people think that we don't believe that. You and me both believe that. So I don't have an issue.
That's an interesting conversation that I don't really want to get into.
Yeah, we can skip that part. We can just literally skip that part. What else do you want to talk about? We can go from there. But that part, I disagree. Like, he has a God. Okay, I agree with that.
I know you agree with that, but that's something different. That's
there's more. There's probably more to it than just that. Obviously. Yeah.
So real quick, you said prove Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is only the Father and Tanakh. You told me personally, or no, in your video, you can't use anything outside sources. So are you referring to like New Testament or everything? Like, for example, are you excluding metaphysics?
If you want to use metaphysics, that's fine. I mean, if you want to use some type of metaphysics or whatever the case may be just to prove your point within, but the only thing is like, show me, right, is where is the Father in the Tanakh, right? You can use metaphysics if you want to. Obviously the New Testament, it's already going to tell you based upon who the Father is. So it's like, don't use that, but use the verses in itself to show you that this is actually the Father here.
Okay.
And
So
you just
I may
go into
not do
metaphysics if you
that.
want to.
I may not. I just was asking because there's other things that I could show you, but I'm going to try to keep it as isolated to the Tanakh as possible.
Sure.
So one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to assume that there is God the Father, God the Spirit, and God the Son to say that God is only the Father. I'll just do something simple real quick. You note from my debate, Deuteronomy 32:6, is he not your father? So I'm going to identify God as Israel's father. I'm not going to say it's the Father, but I intend on trying to show distinction between that God who is their father and Messiah. Is that cool?
Sure.
Yeah. So to me, he's just Father God, not God the Father. But okay, so we can see that Messiah can bear God's identity. And representationally, we can see that there's a strong case that Deuteronomy 18:18 is referring to the servant in the book of Isaiah and even in Micah and several other places that I'm not really trying to get into. So going back to Deuteronomy 18, we have some good context here. So it says, let me make sure I'm not moving too fast. Okay, so in this passage, he says, I will raise up a prophet from among their brethren like you, and put my words in his mouth. He shall speak all I command him. So does this show a distinction between the person speaking and the person being spoken about regarding that servant or that prophet?
Oh, this is a distinction in persons. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a distinction. So what I would have to do now to try to show that the one speaking is the only God in existence is I got to prove the speaker right now with some kind of exclusionary identity statement in the Old Testament, right?
You can, yeah, it would be more of like, hey, this is the only person that is going to be the speaker, or he's the only individual that is this speaker. That is this one God or this one Father in this sense.
So what we see here is the speaker says he's going to put his words, the words belong to him, in the mouth of the prophet. And the speaker here is going to command the prophet what to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in verse 19, it does say, whoever will not listen to my words, which he shall speak in my name. And we can link that part, he's going to speak in this person's name, to Micah 5:4 as representational identity.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. In verse 15, okay, I'm going to read verse 15 and 16 and 17 just to get us a time frame. So it says, the Lord your God will raise up a prophet from the midst of you, of your brethren, like to me. Him you shall hearken, according to all that you desired of the Lord, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, neither let me see the great fire any more, that I die not. And the Lord said to me, they have well spoken, which they have spoken, I will raise up a prophet. So The Lord in verse 16 there would be the one speaking in verse 18. I will raise up a prophet, right? Based on the context?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to isolate this to a singular person because we see that there's a distinction between the speaker in verse 18 and the prophet that he's going to put words in his mouth. So that would make this person speaking in verse 16 a singular person, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you have any idea when this took place, where it says the day that you did of the assembly, when he spoke to you from the fire?
So it's either going to be the case is going to be either referring back to Exodus chapter 3, or we're talking about Deuteronomy or Exodus 32, where God descended on the mountain fire.
Did you say
Deuteronomy
Exodus
4
3?
literally says the same thing about where God descended in fire as well. But you didn't see a form, but you heard his voice. So
Yeah, so this would actually be Exodus chapter 20.
was it 20? I know it was like
This-
Exodus 20 or was it 23? I forget which one it was. Or was it 19?
Yeah, so
forget
I
which one it
recently did a very in-depth study. If you're interested, I'll send you a link to my YouTube later on Exodus. So it's like this. Basically, when they arrived at Sinai and Exodus 19, they said, prepare yourself 3 days. I'm going to come down. Then in Exodus 20, God begins speaking the 10 sayings, the 10 words. The people get afraid and they withdraw.
Yeah.
Then Moses goes to them, and this is when they make that request. You speak to him lest we die. And Moses is saying that God said they've asked a good thing, so I'm going to raise up a prophet like you that would basically be a mediator between him and the assembly. And so this is at the end of chapter 20, and Moses draws near to God. Chapter 21, 22, and 23, he's receiving judgments. Chapter 24, he anoints the priesthood. He ascends back into the mountain where he receives revelation for the priest, the temple, the clothes, all that. Chapter 25, 26, 27, 28. I think 29, but while he's in the mountain, around chapter 32, 31, 32, God's like, they're doing a bad thing down there. They're making a golden calf. So Moses goes back down, sees them, breaks the stones, does a smiting, then reascends to make atonement in chapter 33 and chapter 34. Chapter 33, where he says, no man can see me and live. Chapter 34, he gives him the renewed 10 commandments. So particularly the time frame that we're talking about would be Exodus chapter 20, where God speaks them out of the fire at Horeb. And this would be a singular individual. He's going to raise up a prophet like Moses. So if we go to Deuteronomy chapter 4 and we read verses 35 through 39, it says, and this is in regards to that time, to you it was showed that you might know that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, he is God, and there is none else beside him. Out of heaven he made you hear his voice, that he might instruct you, and on the earth he showed you his great fire. And you heard his words out of the midst of the fire. That's Exodus 20. And because he loved your fathers, therefore he chose their seed after them and brought you out in his sight with his mighty power out of Egypt, to drive out nations before you, greater and mightier than you are, to bring you in and give you their land for an inheritance as it is this day. Know therefore this day, and consider it in your heart, that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, he is God in heaven and above and earth beneath, and there is none else. So this here in verse 35 and 39, is putting an exclusion between the person that spoke out of the midst of the fire and everyone else that would be a god. And we know that that is one person based on the raising up of the prophet. And he made you hear his voice. So that putting connection between the one that raises up the prophet and this passage here, which would show that the father of Israel, which bought them, is the only God, and there's a distinction between him and the prophet like Moses, which is Isaiah's servant.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's good, Joe. Can you hear me?
That right? I hear you. Do you want to reply or push back?
Okay, so you're saying that the person that is speaking out of heaven, he caused you to hear his voice discipline you on the earth. He caused you to see his great fire. You heard his words. You're saying that one he, right, is that one person?
Yeah, the one that raises up the prophet like Moses, because he said they spoke a good thing when they heard his voice, that he would raise up the prophet.
I mean, I could say that one he is going to be identified as that one person that could raise up the prophet. I can agree to that. I don't have an issue with that.
So in regards to the he that made you hear his voice, he's identified as the only God in heaven and earth, that particular person.
That one he's going to be that particular person in the sense of what again?
In regards to the one that spoke out of the midst of the fire, that raises up the prophet, which is distinct from himself.
Sure.
I would appreciate if you do wait there, sir. And hopefully when we do talk, it don't have to get crazy. But I'm waiting for Copa to digest this and possibly push back, or hopefully maybe he would flow with the text and believe it, because Copa, I do want you to come to know what I know.
Okay, let me see.
I mean, it's understandable. I mean,
Let's see.
I'm pretty patient, trust me. As long as we can have a chill discussion at whatever time it is, then I'll be calm. That's how I work. I match energy, so if any straw mans or anything happens, then that's kind of when it goes crazy. But for the most part, as long as I can stay on topic, you can stay on topic, have a great discussion.
It's certainly a possibility. It is Sabbath, so we're not supposed to be bickering.
I could just wait on my stream and just then we could have once you're done with this, you can just come over on mine if you want. Jesse?
I'm listening. I didn't want to engage too much until Copa responded, or he's still thinking. I didn't want to, throw too much in here, rattle his thoughts, and he forget the things that we've talked about.
I understand that. I'm just saying that once you guys are done, you can come over to my stream, and then we can have our little discussion if you.
Oh, your stream?
Yeah. I was mainly
give me a second.
Yeah, I was mainly going over the Gospel of John, but then I saw you were live. I was like, let me see if we can.
I'm sending you a follow so that I can find you afterward.
Okay, I met mine on YouTube. Yeah, I'm on YouTube right now.
Oh, you're on YouTube also. And Copa, I did stream this to YouTube, so I'll send you the link afterward also, because there's a lot of things said in this video that you can learn from, even if we disagree, but I hope you come to agree.
Oh, this is on YouTube?
Yeah, I've been
Oh, okay,
streaming YouTube and TikTok together for a little while now. I've tried to advance my channels.
Yeah, that's dope. I mean, hey, more the merrier. At least it gives me something, like, instead of like downloading what I just said before. It helps me out.
Yeah.
I haven't got to that point yet. I don't even. You gotta show me how to connect TikTok and YouTube together, because I have no idea how I do that. Look. I think when we did our debate, I had to do it on my mother's laptop. I didn't actually have a computer. But since now I got one and I have my own camera, I have everything. So now I'm just trying to figure out how to combine those two together. But if you can help me out
Yeah,
and how to do that, that would be perfect.
We could definitely talk, and after I send you the link, if you want to send me your YouTube channel, I'll tag you in this video so that it would draw other people to you, good or bad, but all followers help your channel grow.
Okay, so I'm trying to follow you what you're saying. Okay, so you're saying that the one person that's speaking, right, in Deuteronomy chapter 4, 35 to like say 35, 36, and 37, right, is going to be the one person who is identified as the one God and Father who raises up the prophet? That is distinct from the prophet.
Yeah, so let's just simplify with Deuteronomy 18 that there's a distinction between the speaker and the prophet. And it said that I'm going to go backwards and reread that context, because I really want to isolate that speaker as a person to the one that was speaking out of the fire. So it says, according to all that you desired, Deuteronomy 18:19. All that you desired the Lord your God in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, neither let me see this great fire anymore, lest I die. Right now, the Lord his God sounds pretty bland. Then it says, and the Lord said to me, they have spoken well, which they have spoken. I will raise up. So this is connecting the one that raises up the prophet to the one that actually speaks out of the fire. And Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse, there's a lot of context before that, recounting the same imagery that they didn't hear his voice. He spoke to them face to face out of the fire. It says, to you it was showed that you might know Yod-Heh-Vav, hey, he is God, there's none else. This is actually Moses speaking, but he's referring to the speaker from the fire. Out of heaven, he made you hear his voice. This is the voice that they're afraid of. So he says, I'll raise a prophet like you. And he showed you his great fire. He spoke to them face to face from the midst of the fire. And you heard his words out of the midst of the fire. And because he loved your fathers, so this is tying it back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I don't want to go too hard. But the verse 39, 35 is exclusionary language regarding to that particular speaker who raises up the prophet.
Okay, so you're saying that this one particular person, right, is the one that's speaking through the fire, the one is speaking to in Deuteronomy 18, the one that led them out of Egypt and all that stuff, right? He's that one person that stated that, there is no other God like you, right?
Yeah, Moses in chapter 4 is saying that there's no other person except the one that spoke out of the fire. And Moses tells us in Deuteronomy 18 that the person that spoke out of the fire is the one that raises up the prophet.
Okay, that part is that's where I'm trying to figure that part out, where we get that Moses is referring to that person per se.
It's in the context of Deuteronomy 18. So it says, the Lord, he will raise up a prophet from the midst of your brothers. Verse 15, according to all that you desired of the Lord in Horeb, saying, let us not hear against the voice of God in Exodus 20. nor see his fire anymore, that I die not. And the Lord said to me, they have spoken well. I will raise up. This points back to one person, the same person that they said, you speak to him for us. He says, I will raise up the prophet.
I can see that he's stating that there is no one like you in the sense of like being, but not necessarily in person per se.
Say that again.
Yeah, so the way I'm looking at it, it's like the same way if we're looking at like 2 Samuel 7:14 or 7:22, where David is saying to like there is no one like you. For instance, what do you call it? What was it? What did he say? Yeah, he says, for this reason, you are great, O Lord, and there is none like you. There's no God beside you, according to all that we have heard with our ears. So it seems like what you're saying is that the one that's speaking, right, that's speaking in the midst of the fire, is going to be the one that is the speaker, right, that says, I will raise up a prophet like you amongst your brethren, right? And then Moses is saying that that one person, he is that one God and Father, right? And there's no one like him.
And you're saying that you're saying that Moses in Deuteronomy 4 is speaking regarding a being and not a person?
I refer to that he's saying that there is no other being like him. Not necessarily there's no other person like him. It's the same thing, like I would say, like for David.
And regarding the being, will you define what the definition of the being is in the sense that you're using?
Yeah, something that exists.
Something. So basically, that which exists, right?
Yeah.
And is that being an essence, or is that a hypostasis, or multiple hypostases?
I would say the being is what's the word I'm looking for? It's not the essence itself, not like the abstract thing.
There's different Trinitarians, and that's why I got to clarify terms to you to know how to respond.
Give me 1 second. Because I had it written down. What I was saying. No, that's not it. There it is. Yeah, so I would just say a concrete reality that exists. It doesn't necessarily mean like the essence itself.
So it's both essence and persons, the entirety of the one God of the Bible?
It's pretty much the entirety of the one God of the Bible. It's like you're talking to the being itself, not necessarily a hypostasis per se or the essence. It's like you're just talking to that concrete reality that exists. So if I said, I'm talking to this man, right? I didn't identify the person, but I identify what I'm talking to, right? This concrete reality that exists, right? Now you're just talking to, you're speaking to completely all of him, right? But you're not talking to the abstract, what do you call it? The abstract essence of him, right? You're not talking to that.
Yeah. So like I'm just really trying to get it all together. So you're saying we're not talking to an abstraction, we're talking to a concrete subject, and it's does this concrete subject consist of multiple concrete subjects regarding hypostases?
Does this concrete, wait, say it again?
the being that you're referring to is a concrete subject, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Will you agree with this term or redefine it so we're on the same level? A concrete subject is a real existing individual able to bear properties, act, and stand in relations.
So what was it again?
A concrete subject is a real existing individual able to bear properties, act, and stand in relation.
Concrete subject, sure.
Okay, so is that what you're saying this being is?
A concrete subject that is an individual?
It's real. We already agree it's real. It exists.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real existing individual able to bear properties. You don't believe in accidental properties, so in this, it would be essential.
Mm-hmm.
It bears essential properties. It acts. It does actions. It experiences. And it can stand in relation. It can be relational.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying this being is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which doesn't tell you how many persons this being is. It just tells you that he's relational. He's a subject. He's an individual, but it doesn't tell you how many hypostases or persons that subsist within this one being. It just tells you what he is and how he relates.
And this one concrete subject says, I will raise up a prophet like Moses in Deuteronomy 18:18.
Yeah, I would say that this concrete subject is going to raise up a prophet like Moses. And Moses in like Deuteronomy 34, Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 4 verses, what was it? Was it 35? Were there, or what was it was it 35 or was it somewhere else that you said, there is no one like you, right?
Oh, that's Deuteronomy chapter 4, 35 and 39.
Yeah. 39, yeah, exactly. There is no one like you. So he's referring to that subject, not necessarily how many hypostases there are. So when he's saying that, Moses would say, you have heard his voice, he's referring to the subject, would be Yahweh, his voice, right? Not necessarily the person per se. Now we can identify is a person that's speaking to Moses, right? But that doesn't mean that Moses understands that it's only this person that is this personal subject, right? He's just understanding that, hey, you as in Yahweh, who is our God, right? You, this personal being, right? There is no one else like you, not necessarily the person per se.
Okay, so Moses is speaking under the assumption that this is one person, correct?
What? I don't know if he knows that it's one person. I'm not sure. I'm not going to make the argument that I have no idea what Moses actually believed in, if it was one person or if it was multiple persons. I just know that he just knows it's one personal subject.
So what we can say is, do you agree that Moses believes that the same concrete subject that says, I will raise up a prophet like you, is the same concrete subject that spoke out of the fire that he says there is no other God or except that one in the heaven and earth?
The one concrete subject is the same concrete subject that is stated that created the heavens and the earth?
Yeah, so I'm saying, is Moses saying that the one that says, I will raise up a prophet like you, is the same concrete subject as the one in Deuteronomy 4 that spoke out of the midst of the fire that he says there's no other God except that concrete subject?
I think it's like the same. Yeah, I think he believed it's numerically identical. It's the same concrete subject. Just how many hypostases, I can't give you what he believed when it comes down to that. But he just believed that it's just this one concrete subject that speaks, it's relational, that is numerically identical to, the one that is in chapter 4. So the one that's in, so Moses believes this concrete subject in Deuteronomy 18 is the same subject, right? That's in Deuteronomy chapter 4, right? That he's identifying. That is the same, concrete subject that created the heavens and the earth, right? He identifies that. He's just not identifying how many hypostases this being is, or this concrete subject is.
Yes, and there's I'm trying to go with
sense?
your answers. I do believe so, and I think that maybe it might be a good idea to not assert that there are.
That's why I'm not asserting like how many subjects or how many persons there are, or how many persons that Moses believes in, because I don't know. It doesn't give me that. Like, for instance, that Moses could believe like 10. There's 10 persons or whatever. Or I know. I don't know. I don't want to like insert something that I have no clue. That where Moses even believes or whatever. I just know that there's this personal subject that he identifies, right? Or concrete subject that he identifies is the creator of the heavens and the earth, is that same concrete subject that speaks to him, right? In Genesis, not Genesis, but in Exodus and also in Deuteronomy. That I do know.
So, let me ask you now, lay this aside for a pause so we can clarify your stances. When you talk about the being of God as a concrete subject, is a hypostasis of God also a concrete subject?
Is the hypostasis a concrete subject?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can say
as a category.
Yeah, it would be distinct from the what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? Like the being itself. So it depends on what we mean by like the being. So if I said that the hypostasis is like a concrete subsisting who, so that's what I would say. So there's like a distinguishing factor on this one.
Is a concrete subsistence who a concrete subject?
Is a concrete subsisting who is a concrete? Wait, repeat that again. I'm
basically, you said that the hypostasis is a concrete subsisting who.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking, basically restate my question using your answer. I'm just asking if the hypostasis is a concrete subject.
Yeah, the hypostasis is a concrete subject, or concrete subsisting who, or I guess you would say.
And the category of the being of God and the category of the hypostasis of God, or hypostases to be respectful, they're distinct. They're not numerically identical, right?
Well, we're just talking about the being itself. So that's referring to like the, what are you referring to? What's the word I'm looking for? The concrete existence, not necessarily the person that's acting.
You're saying the being is an existence?
The being is in existence, not an existence, but is. It's more of like, if I would say more precisely, like the concrete divine entity, right, or reality is the one God who exists, right? Or more precise is, I would say, the agent performing the act of speaking. Then we get to the person, which would be something totally different.
Yeah, so are you saying that the concrete subject of the being is distinct from the hypostases in respect that it is not the hypostases?
Repeat that again.
Are you saying that the concrete subject, the category of the concrete subject of the being of God, is distinct from the category of the hypostases of God?
The concrete subject is distinct from the hypostases of God.
Yeah. You know how you guys normally say we conflate being and person? I'm trying to make sure that there's a distinction there, or if the three person are that one being, and numerical identity. I just want to see if it's distinct or not.
So the concrete subject, or the concrete subject being, is that what you said?
Well, let's lay aside the concrete subject, and we can do this real fast. The being of God, you've already said, is a concrete subject, and I believe you said persons, the hypostases, are also concrete subjects, right?
Just in a different sense, yeah.
And what sense do you mean?
Yeah, so we would just say that it's a subsisting individual, not necessarily like the being itself. Because we're not going to conflate like the person and like the essence or the being itself. Like what?
Yeah. So what I'm really trying to do, so we can just eliminate the word concrete subject and not have so many vocabulary words. I'm just trying to make sure that the being of God is a concrete subject, and each hypostasis is also a concrete subject. Is that true?
So the being is a concrete subject. Yeah, if we're using it loosely, sure. If you're using like subject loosely, I would avoid using concrete subject because it can refer to the two things. That's why it's like it's very tricky when you say subject here.
I do want to keep the same definition though. It's a real existing individual. Each hypostasis as well as the being, it's a real existing individual. Able to bear properties true of being, true of each hypostasis, can act true of being and true of each hypostasis, can stand in relations true of being and true of each hypostasis.
Yeah, so we would say, okay, so I would say being wouldn't be in this sense right here, would be a concrete subject. I would say being is a concrete existence. That which, right, in usage, we would say Yahweh is the one concrete divine being. But that being acts. But the thing is like how we say that he acts is just going to be like, can this being talk, or can this being, that. But that's when you get, very specifics. When you say that the divine hypostasis, the person performs the act of speaking.
Okay, so
that's why it's like subject gets really what's the word I'm looking for? Tricky here.
Yeah. So when you say that
it'd be better if we said like I would say it would be better if we said the concrete divine being speaks, and then the concrete divine subject, right, is the person. If that makes sense.
Well, there's some problems in the way we're defining things now, because now there's confusion. When you say the concrete divine being, and you're not defining concrete divine being as a concrete subject, it sounds like you're calling an abstraction a concrete. It sounds like you're calling an abstraction concrete.
Well, it's not an abstraction. It's something that exists. Because remember, a concrete existence, which something exists. That's what we refer to being, something that actually exists, not something that is abstract. We're not talking about the essence of the thing.
So listen to how this sounds. Maybe you'll understand how it sounds to me. You're trying to say that the being is a concrete existence, and you're also saying the being is something that exists. when you say the being is a concrete existence, you're referencing existence, but you left the something that exists empty.
I don't know. I'm very confused what you just said.
I'm sorry, man. I've spent a lot of hours thinking about these things, and I'm really trying to I interpret you're saying, and I'm trying to make sure there's clarity. So you're going to tell me now that the being of God, you confess it's real and existing, so I'm not going to straw man you, but you're saying that the being of God cannot act, cannot stand in relation, and cannot bear property?
No, he can. Like the being can do these things. If we just want to get specifics, we just prefer it as the concrete subject. That's what I'm saying. When we say the concrete being, right? The being speaks. The being can act, right? But the way that we were referring to being is the concrete existence. So take the divine part out. It says the concrete being, right, speaks. So it's like me saying man speaks, right? You're referring to the being. That being exists in reality. You're not looking at something that's abstract, right? The human being, right, for instance, right, speaks. You're not referring to the personal subject. The personal subject would be Jesse or Copa or whoever in the whole 9 yards. That would be the personal subject.
I'm not trying to talk about a personal subject, because what I see is, would you agree with me that if the being of God says he's going to raise up a prophet and put his words in that prophet's mouth, that the being of God would be functioning as a hypostasis?
The being of God will function as a hypostasis?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
As a person, it's communicating to, no doubt that the prophet is a person. So just like in general, face value, it kind of looks like a person communicating with a person, correct?
Well, it is a person communicating with a person, because we would say that the person that's speaking to, I guess you would say Moses, right, who is a person, they're communicating. But for Moses, he's looking at it as this being is talking to me, not necessarily this person is talking to me. If that makes sense?
I understand what you're trying to say. I'm just trying to really, it seems like you're wanting to deny that this being is a person because of what could follow.
No, I'm not saying it's not a person. I'm not saying it's not a person. What I'm saying is Moses is not identifying it as this personal subject per se that's talking to me. He's referring it to as this being, right, is talking to me. Whatever this being is, he's talking to me. And he can refer to as, okay, this person is talking to me for all we know. But he's not saying only this person. He's not grasping that, I guess you would say, in that way. He's not looking at it in that way. If that makes sense. Like I was trying to say that when you're talking to a human being, right, you understand, yeah, I understand this human being is talking to me, and yeah, I might understand he might be a person or a personal subject, right? But that doesn't mean that there is like only like one personal subject or three personal subjects. I just know that this being is talking to me. I just don't know what I'm relating to. I know it's personal. The question is, how do I know, or what do I know about this being is going to be personal? He might come to a conclusion it's, a person, but how does he come to that? There's, it's going to be revealed to him later. So that's what I'm saying. It's just this being that's talking to him. What does he know about it? Not much.
So basically what you're saying is, from the context, it appears as if this is a personal subject, a concrete subject, but according to the context, we can't determine if it's a singular person or multiple.
we can see based upon this is actually a singular person, but for Moses, he's not referring it to as a singular person. He's just referring it as this being is.
So
when
I
he
think
says
that maybe
you, when he says you are, he's referring to the being, not necessarily the person.
I think maybe the confusion is coming from forgetting how it all unfolds. Someone speaks out of the midst of the fire. The people are afraid, withdraw, and ask Moses to speak to this someone. That someone says they did well, and I'm going to raise up a prophet like you. And there's a distinction between that someone and the Messiah, the prophet. And Moses says that it is the someone that spoke out of the midst of the fire that there is no other God except, and that someone is the one that raises up a prophet. So based on the context, which is a lot of context I understand, it appears as if this is a single isolated individual, which is a person, and a distinction between him and the prophet, who you said I made a good case for, is the Messiah, the servant. And that person is the only one, the only God that exists.
Was that a question for me? I'm sorry. Was that a?
Oh, it was a summary, and I was waiting for a reply.
Okay. I don't know if it was a question. Okay.
Do you want me to restate it, or did you get it?
Yeah. Can you just restate it just a little bit, just so I remember it? Because I don't know if it was a question. I was thinking if it was a question or not. My fault.
Yeah. So the context that we have is someone speaks from the fire. The people are afraid and ask Moses to speak to that someone. That someone said that they did well and he'll raise a prophet like Moses. There's a distinction between that prophet like Moses and the someone who said this, who is the someone that speaks out of the fire. And Moses tells us in Deuteronomy 4 that someone that speaks out of the fire is the only God in heaven and earth. That's my summary. You can reply back to it. There's no question.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that this subject, what we would just say as the, what do you call it? What did I say before? The divine being, right? Or the concrete existence, right? We refer to Yahweh. So the concrete existence that is speaking from the fire, that's saying that you did well. The concrete existence that is saying that I will raise up a prophet like you, right? Is the one that's talking, even though we can identify it can refer to a person, right? A personal subject, right? And I grant the fact that he's acting like a hypothetical personal subject. Well, I would deny that the inference is because Yahweh can refer to a personal as a you, right? Must be a personal subject, right? I would just say that the you is going to refer to the concrete existence, right? That one that is acting, right? That speaks, because obviously we know that beings do act, right? Human beings do act. We don't have to refer to the personal subject all the time, right? So. It's the same thing that we you know, how we relate to things in reality, like, hey, this guy did this, or this man came up to me, or this woman came up to me. You're not identifying the personal subject, but you're identifying the existing, right, or the concrete existent being, right, that is interacting with you, right? Not referring to, even though that being can perform, you know, personal subject actions, right, of speaking, talking, doing all these things, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, so pronouns help, but I'm not leaning on pronouns entirely.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you won't. I'm
have,
just saying, just in general.
yeah, so I have presented a case that would represent a distinction between the one that raises the prophet and the prophet himself. And I've used actions to isolate, to keep the focus of the subject that raises the prophet to be the one acting in the speaking out of the fire incident. And I am using, I'm crossing that with the actions that Moses is recounting, that it would be the same one. And I'm using the exclusionary identity statements to show that that person or that one acting is the same person consistently, that there's a distinction between that prophet and that I don't mean to say person, but that subject. There's definitely a distinction between that subject and the prophet. And I can understand your elections, but I think that I've demonstrated that it is a singular subject. I think at this point in time, respectfully, Copa.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing that there's a personal subject that's speaking. I'm not disagreeing with that. What I'm usually saying is that Moses is not affirming that this is the only person that he identifies as this concrete existence.
So let's say that I met you halfway with your statement there, and I probably will retract what I'm about to say if it backfires on me and try a different method. But let's just say that there's no clarification that the one speaking from the fire is a single person, that it could be more. One thing we can't forget, and this is crucial, there's a distinction between that one and that prophet, which leaves that prophet out. There was no question. That was all statement.
Okay, that was a statement. Okay. So you're saying that there is a distinction between, are you saying that there's like a personal distinction between the God that's speaking and the one that he raises up, the prophet that he raises up? There's like a clear distinction.
Based on what we've covered so far, there has been an agreed distinction between that prophet, and I'm not saying that you confirmed or conceded that that's definitely Messiah, but you said I made a good case for it. So just taking that and knowing that there's a distinction between the singular subject, if that singular subject consists of more than one person or is one of many persons, and it would be excluding the one that he's talking to or about regarding the prophet. And honestly, actually, I think I am going to take that back now, because you would have to bear a burden to give me some kind of if we only go from the text alone and it appears to be one person, and Moses is regarding that one subject as the only God in existence, and there's a distinction between that subject and Messiah. Contextually reading only exegesis, it appears as if that person is the only God, or that subject is the only God, and the prophet cannot be. I think that you would have to provide something to me to imply that that subject could be more than one person to move forward.
Okay, so you want me to prove to or give you like a case that this personal subject, or I guess what you're referring to, the personal subject, is a multi-personal subject, I guess you would say.
basically in the context that we have and with everything given.
Well, the thing that I'm giving you is pretty much and this is pretty much what I'm usually saying, right? That I don't usually refer it as a personal subject, and maybe I did that wrong when I did that with you when I talked to you. Like, the being is a personal subject. I would have said that it acts like a personal subject, but it's referring to a concrete existence, right? That can act, right, as a personal subject, right? Now, what I'm saying is this person, is this concrete existence, right? One personal subject or multiple personal subjects, right? Based upon what we have, well, one, I can't really give you based upon what we already established, based upon these two verses, right? The one that talks in the midst of the fire and the one that is obviously talking to Moses, right? About the, what do you call it? Raising up the prophet like Moses, right? It doesn't give you much in detail. That's why I said I can grant to you that this one person or this one personal subject is the same personal subject, right? That's been talking to Moses, right? That's in the midst of the fire, or that's talking to Moses about what do you call it? About raising up the prophet like Moses. I can grant you that. But my thing is that when Moses is responding back to the person, the being, right? He's not referring to the person or the personal subject. He's referring to the concrete existence, which he identifies as Yahweh, right? So he's not thinking, okay, this person that I knew all the time is saying these things or making this case or whatever the case may be. He doesn't understand that. He just understands, okay, this concrete existence, right, is acting, right, as a personal subject, but doesn't mean that he's the only personal subject. It's just saying that, hey, you, right, are the God and there is no one else that's beside you, right? I think that's where my case is, right? I'm not making a case that there's multiple subjects. I'm just saying that, hey, from Moses's perspective, right, he's not stating there's multiple subjects, right, based upon these two, I guess you would say these two chapters, right? And Deuteronomy 18:18 and 18, like what, to 20, and Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses like 35 to 38 or 30 or 9 or something like that. So I'm not saying that's going to be the case. I'm just saying that from his perspective, he sees the concrete existence. And that's usually what I'm seeing from basically of the Tanakh itself or the Old Testament, is where they're understanding there is this divine concrete existence, right, that is there. They don't get the distinctions of who he is based upon those two. They get like this, for instance, I would say that you have this divine concrete existence, right, that says, hey, I'm setting my messenger up before you, right? But listen to him, obey his voice, right? And, you know, he has my name in him. So now whatever Moses knows about the name of his God, the messenger possesses it. Now, the messenger, right, in itself, right, within the Hebrew, doesn't necessarily tell you the nature of the being itself. It just tells you that, hey, this angel who's a messenger, hey, guess what? You have to listen to him. Now you have someone that's distinct from the, you know, the being that, or the person that, or that's distinct from Yahweh, which would be the concrete existence, but is identical to the concrete existence. And it's very confusing where we're trying to understand, what does Moses understand? Like, what is it? That's why Yahweh is speaking in the way that he speaks, and why it's very difficult to understand what's going on within these texts, right? And I'm not trying to use like, Greek philosophy, and stuff to assume that's what, Moses and the Israelites, understood. They are just understand, hey, this concrete existence is telling me, hey, this messenger, right, this other individual, right, and that's how they understood about, or I guess you would say a person, which is a messenger, understands like, hey, this messenger is distinct from him, but yet identify as him, right? which I pretty much I have, right, as the other topic. The messenger of Yahweh is distinct from Yahweh, but yet identified as Yahweh, right? So that's where they're getting like, okay, there is some type of, I guess you say manifestation or something else that's there that you can identify with. But from the passages that we're talking about now, you know, Moses is not getting, okay, this is the only personal subject that's talking to me. Therefore, he alone, right, is the only God. There's no other God that's right, that's next to him.
All right, so you said a lot there, and pretty soon I'm going to wrap this up.
Man, we were having a good conversation.
What's that?
I said we were having a good conversation. This is just one time.
I know, but I got to use the restroom, and
that's fine. Yeah, that's okay.
and there's based on where you stand, I don't expect you to be like, "Hey, Jesse, you right? You're right, dude. I got it." So, but I want to say this though about
you're giving me a good argument though. You're giving me a good case, and I'm gonna have to look into it a little bit more. I think maybe I wasn't as clear as I thought I was.
Well, there's some points and some things you said that hurt you, but I'm not trying to bring those up. And I don't know your personality. Some people will never see if they did make an error.
I mean, you can tell me the error. Yeah, you can tell me the error because no one has ever gave me an argument like this. Most people don't give me what you're doing right now. Usually they just go with what the Bible says, and then they just assume that. I'm like, okay, can you prove that without, giving me your conclusion, right? What you're doing is you're breaking it down, and you're asking me questions, how I see it, how you see it, what do we call it, and all that stuff. They don't do that. They just go ahead with their conclusion. I'm like, okay, how did you get that? And they said, well, isn't it obvious? I said, no, that's the reason why I'm asking you. You see what I'm saying? So I don't have an issue. Yeah. I don't run, like I said, I'm not. This is like, my first time actually having an actual discussion of this topic. So I don't have an issue if you say whatever hurts me. I can look into it and see what I said wrong, and maybe I can refind it a little bit the next time we talk, which is fine. You can tell me anything.
Well, I can give you an example. Earlier, sure, when we were talking about and defining what a concrete subject is, whether the being is a concrete subject, that three persons are concrete subjects. And when you started seeing that that can't work out, it's almost like you're adding a fourth person, or you're mixing the person and the being. Then you start trying to redefine what concrete subject or go back on your answer. But on the path that we were on there, there were some things there
that was a blunder on my end. Because what I did was I identified a personal subject with the being itself. I equivocated on that, like, the being is a personal subject, but in my mind I'm like, well, wait a minute, now that's referring to the hypostases. So the being itself acts like is a personal subject, but not necessarily that's what it's identified as. And I made a blunder on my end.
Yeah. So
yeah.
It is what it is, and I'll send you the link. We've been talking for almost 2 hours now, and
Has it been 2 hours?
Hopefully, if you maybe you clean house or something, you can listen to this and you can grow from this. Like I said, you can even use my presentation to show Messiah in the Old Testament, and
you did a good job. I'm not gonna lie, you did a very good job when you did the Messiah part. Do you talk to rabbinical Jews and all that stuff? Have you been doing that lately?
No, I'm just a deep Bible student.
Oh, okay, I thought you've been talking to like the Jews and all that stuff and try to prove your point and all that. But yeah,
I really believe God leads me, man.
Yeah.
But
you did better than what I could do, because I would never put those two together. For some reason in my head, I would never done it. But you did it perfectly.
Well, let me show you something then. I can show you tons of things, but I'll show you something that you might. I don't know if you caught this. Do you have a Bible?
I'm in front of my laptop. I'm gonna have a laptop, a desktop.
Yeah, well, go Jeremiah 31, 31 through 34.
Okay.
You got to pay attention to fine details to see this, but it shows Messiah has two comings. And if you overlay this with Ezekiel 36, where you'll actually see that the new covenant starts before Israel comes back into covenant with God, like
Okay.
fully.
Okay, so you said Jeremiah 31, and I'm guessing like 31 to 35?
34, yeah.
Okay.
So it says, "Behold, the days come, says the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah." Pause. Notice there's two houses.
Right.
Then it says, "Not according to the covenant I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they broke, although I was a husband to them, says the Lord. But this will be the covenant I will make with his house of Israel after those days." What days? What days? What after what days?
Mm-hmm.
So it says, "Behold, the day comes, says the Lord, I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and Judah." Then it says, "This is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel," one house, "after those days." So it shows the covenant starts while there's still two houses not yet come together in one house. Ezekiel's
Okay. So he's making
Yeah.
that covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, but then he cuts the covenant with the house of Israel, but doesn't go to the house of Judah? Or he does it in the house of Judah, but doesn't go to the house of Israel yet.
Exactly. The house of it. No. It starts in the days. The covenant is for both scattered
Yeah.
Israel and for Judah.
Right. But the covenant that
after
he
those-
cuts is with which one first? That's what I was asking.
Both.
Okay,
Both.
both. Okay.
But this is the covenant he makes after those days. Now there's only one house.
Okay, but this is the
Ezekiel's-
covenant with those. Okay.
Ezekiel's narrating the covenant after the two sticks become one stick. It
Ezekiel
shows
what?
the new 36. After the stick of Joseph and Judah, I think it is, they
Give me one
become
second,
one
real quick.
stick.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Might be 37. I can't remember. All right, I swapped microphones so I can talk to you guys for a moment. Apparently he's doing something. I didn't want you to just watch about 10 minutes of silence.
And barking at something.
I understand.
Okay, you say Ezekiel what?
Well, Ezekiel chapter 36, verses 24 through 28 would be talking about his narrative of the new covenant.
Okay.
And chapter 37 is talking about where he raises them up and puts breath in them, and the two sticks become one stick. So what I'm showing you is like when Jews appeal here to show Israel has to be gathered before the covenant can actually start. That's not true because Jeremiah shows that the covenant starts before Israel is gathered.
Okay. Ezekiel 36, 24 to 28, and I will take from take you from the nations and gather you in the lands and bring you into the lands, then I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean, and I will cleanse you from all uncleanness, from all your idols. Moreover, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you, and I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh, and I'll give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will be careful to do my judgments, and you will inhabit the land that I gave to your fathers. So you will be my people, and I will be your God. Okay.
Yeah, so that's Ezekiel's narration of it, but Jeremiah touches both time frames. And I'm only being brief with you because I have one more thing to show you regarding our topic before I actually leave. But I want to show you one more. So if you go to Isaiah chapter 50, and hold on. Okay, yes, it's the first verse. Where's the bill of your mother's divorcement? Israel's divorce, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah 51, verse 16, God puts his words in Messiah's mouth. Isaiah 52, it's a beautiful time of rejoicing. Isaiah 53, who believed our report? He's unalived. Isaiah 54, and Paul talks about this in Galatians 4. As the married woman and the unmarried woman. Sing, O barren, you that did not bear, break forth into singing and cry aloud, you that did not travail with child. For more are the children of the desolate than the children of the married wife. So after the servant's unalived, the wife is married again, but there's two wives. There's a desolate children coming from an unmarried wife. And then it goes on to say, enlarge the place of your tents. Let them stretch forth the curtains of your habitation, spare not, because this is the grafting in of the nations. And then verse 3, you shall break forth. This is a future tense. Mm-hmm. So this shows that the covenant starts before Israel is actually gathered and given the promises, but their places or their habitations are going to be enlarged because I don't want to say too much and overwhelm you, but this is the grafting in of the nation. Mm-hmm. Then the next chapter, the covenant of David, and then the Isaiah 56, who can partake in that covenant. So those are ways you can show that the covenant starts before Israel's completely gathered. It's extended to them, but not all of them take it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can write down around 2 hours somewhere if you want. When I send you that link, you can go to the 2 hour mark of this video, and you can get these citations if you haven't wrote them down and study them.
Actually, I have what you said. I have Jeremiah 31, 31 to 35, Ezekiel 36, 24 to 28, and then everything else you kind of like ramble on. And I'm just going to end up listening to that again once you send me the link. I'm going to get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With your Jeremiah citation, write Jeremiah 27 as the start of that passage. Because it says that he's going to sow the house. Yeah, verse 27.
Gotcha.
Because he sows the house of Israel and Judah with the seed of Adam. That's significant. Why would he be talking about bringing Israel into the house of Israel and Judah? Mm-hmm. The seed of Adam is obviously not from that house. That's the grafting in of the nations. And note, they're two houses. Okay. So that happens before they become one house.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, back to the topic. I'll have this one last argument. And I may get something out of it, but I may not get everything that you're asking for. So let's see. Are roles proper? Well, this is the thing though. With how we described hypostasis and being earlier, would you say roles are proper to the being or to the persons?
Roles would be referred to the person per se. like I would say like the son's role is being like the medium, right? How the father does all these things. So the father does it through the son, the way that I understand it. The father is the source of all things. So when someone would ask, like, "Hey, can the son, be, the source, and can the father be the means of things?" It's like no, because that changes who they are per se.
Would you agree with me, and you can correct me, redefine it? The difference between a function and a role is basically a personal identity, and a function is what you do, a personal what you do.
A function and a role?
Yeah. A function would be what you do, and a role has to do with personal identity.
Sure. Oh, okay.
You can modify it.
Yeah, let me see. So a function is personal identity, right?
I'm sorry?
You said function is personal identity, right?
No, I said role is, because if I'm thinking of roles, I'm thinking of titles.
Okay. So
yeah, it's like it's a role as a title, and the functions would be a part of that role because there are certain things you do in regards to that role. But I wouldn't say a role and a function equal.
Give me 1 second. My dog is just, oh my God.
Now, I don't know if you guys hear a delay between my image and the actual audio. I'm going to go back and look at this later, and I might have to make an edit or reconstruct it so that maybe in the future when I do this, you can actually see me interacting with people instead of looking at a blank screen without me. Something like you would be looking at this. That gets a little boring, So I'll try to do better in my next video, but this has been a good video. If you guys you can just listen to it while you're doing something. There's growing material here. Yeah. Swap my mic again. Or I guess I could wait a second because he's actually doing something. He's not yet back. But I'm going to try to sum this up and close out this live and move forward with my day. I still have a live regarding plural of majesty. It's coming up soon. There's a lot of verses we can go to that people receive plural nouns that are not plural persons, and they're not God. It'll be good study for people who try to say there's no plural of majesty. And I'll clarify definitions because, like Dr. Garza, what he calls a plural of majesty and what I call a plural of majesty are not the same thing. So there's miscommunication there, and I'm going to try to set that record straight when that happens so that from now on, there won't be straw manning of positions. And as a matter of fact, what I'm going to show you guys doesn't actually have a title. And it's broadly understood as plural of majesty, even if that wasn't the original definition. So that's coming up soon. I'm just waiting for him to get back right now. I'm going to pull out the Malachi 2:10. Yeah, one Father, one role, one person. Yeah. This would actually be interesting because he's going to sway backwards and try to put personal roles on the being and yet deny the being as a person, and the argument I already brought up. So it will show inconsistency, and hopefully Cope was humble enough to, and if he's listening to this, after it's recorded, he's listening to me now, Hopefully he's humble enough to grow from it and maybe come to the truth. I hope so, because he does have a good character. He just I don't believe he serves the right God. I know he don't, but he would also know I don't. So what's the best way to express that? The burden of the word on Malachi. My messenger. That's what Malachi means, my messenger. Yeah. Oh boy. I'm still waiting on him. Not sure what's going on. Still dealing with his pets or not. Attention Unitarians. Uh-oh. Somebody made a post and attention Unitarians. Probably talking smack. Do you seek, ask, and knock? It's a good question. I seek, depending on what you mean. I don't normally ask for personal prayer, like if I'm sick or something. I just accept God's will. I don't ask for healing. Do I knock? I probably don't knock enough. I don't feel like I have to knock to get God's attention. I think he's paying attention, but I definitely seek. Yeah. What about you guys? Something to think about. Do you seek, ask, and knock? Yeah. Isaiah 42:48 presupposes the biblical conclusion. I don't know what that meant, but oh, he's talking to someone. Hopefully he hurries up. My coffee, man, it got me wanting to go to the restroom.
Use the restroom on the carpet for some reason. Not the carpet, but the tile. Nah, it wasn't that bad. He had to pee badly, and so my mom's like, "Hey, I didn't get taken to the restroom yet." I was like, "Thanks." And she's like, "Okay, I'll see you later." I was like, "Uh-huh." Yeah, you said, role is identity, and then function is something else. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think it would refer to the person's. I think the role is like a relational capacity with the person's act. Yeah, and then the function is and I would say like the function is what the person does in that capacity. Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, I get what you're trying to say. Yeah, I think that that's where most people usually have like the question, like, could the Father become begotten? But that's just we would be like a really ill-formed, question for them to say that. God isn't really whether God has like the power to become like some function. Like the goddenness isn't simply a job the Son has or to perform. It's just the relation of the Son. So. Mhm. Mhm. Fatherhood a role? I mean, to human beings, yeah. To God, I wouldn't say in that kind of sense. No, I think fatherhood is just what the father is per se. It's like more like his identity, but not necessarily um not necessarily a role that the father takes on. But for human beings, sure, that could be like a it can apply to us, but then again, like I said, like because I guess you could say that could Jesus be a father to us? Yeah, in a role type sense, but it's going to be like really weird. Or how does that work? Yeah, it's very hard to use like fatherhood because fatherhood can be used in like so many different ways, and it can be either referred to as like a hypostatic property or a covenant type relation or something like that. So it depends on how we're using fatherhood in some sense. Like you can say that, for instance, uh, someone could be your underling, right? And they could say, "Hey, Jesse is my father of the faith, or my father, or whatever relation there is, sense of fatherhood in there." Right? Or you can adopt a person into your life or your familyhood as you could be a father in that type of sense. So yeah, that's why like it depends. I don't know. Mhm. Hey Jesse, look, I gotta go. Yeah, my dog is. Yeah, just send me the link. All right, shalom, shalom.
Well, there you guys have it. Honestly, I met the burden that was provided to me. Um, even if I didn't get any concessions. I think I might do a Chat GPT review of our conversation and post the feedback as a video. And I'm going to look at the video and see whether or not you guys hear my words after my mouth moves. It would be cool if it syncs right. That way I could have me up here in the future when I go into other people's lives. I'm going to take a break for a moment, get myself organized. Someone else did ask me to go to their live. I might do that and see where that goes. But I do need to do that study today. Leo asked me if I'm going to do an open panel. And I'll try, but honestly, I'm not sure. Maybe I can open it up for the Bible study on Plural of Majesty, because it's going to be short. I don't have a lot of material to offer. I'll probably be able to do it in 30 minutes, so maybe we could do it then. I don't typically like to debate on the Sabbath, or I've tried to get out of the habit of that, though sometimes I still do it. Why one is Father? I don't understand what you mean one is Father. But with that said, guys, I'm going to close out my live and get my thoughts together, and I'll see you guys soon, and I'll peep this. Hopefully this works out. Shalom.